Walaikum Assalam. How are you all?
I'm fine. I'm reading Gola.
Ghoda. Okay. Today we will read a story. How was Surah Falaq and Surah Naas was revealed. When these two surahs were revealed, we will read a story from Stories from Prophet's Life, written by Dr. Abdur Rauf. Okay. Bewitching the Prophet with black magic. The Jewish lobby and the pagan forces of Arabia were badly after the Prophet. They did not spare even the age-old weapon of black magic and witchcraft in their desperate bid to demoralize, incapacitate, bewilder, and kill the Holy Prophet. So ruthlessly vicious and vengeful was indeed the psyche of those stubborn people. Knotted cord and needled effigy. Labid bin Asim was a renowned magician of ancient Arabia. Being either a Jew or a hypocrite, he had cordial relations with the Jews of Medina. Once around 7 AH, a deputation of Jews from Khaybar visited Medina. Calling on Labid, they narrated concocted accounts of Prophet's alleged maltreatment of the Jewish community. Exaggerated tales of their woes and worries were played up. They told him that they had tried in vain a diversity of magical devices and witchcraft tactics against the Prophet. They were sure that a mastermind like him alone could help them in the hour of their frustration and dismay. Offering 3 guineas for the job, they requested him to accept the fee and to devise and play a specially powerful magic on the Prophet. Greed of money and flames of hatred gripped Labid's mind. He consented to render the requisite professional services. During those days, a good-natured Jewish boy had been so impressed by Prophet's life cycle and teachings that he had joined his personal service. The conspiring gang prevailed upon that young servant to obtain a piece of Prophet's comb with some of his head's hair stuck over it. Labid subjected the hair and the comb to a special magical process. According to a variant narration, he got the magical ritual effected by his sisters, who had a better command over primitive magic and witchcraft. The spelled comb and hair were then covered in the spike of a male date palm. The choice of the cover was determined by the fact that the male palm resembles the color of male skin. Labid then hid the material underneath a rock at the bottom of Zarwan well in accordance with a meticulously prescribed magical device. Along with the above-mentioned material, there were 2 other items which were also buried at the same place. Number 1, a magic string with 11 knots tied in it, and a wax effigy of the Prophet with needles pierced all over. Now, what was the effect of that magic? Disturbances in Prophet's personal life. Although Prophet's divine functioning as God's messenger was not the least impaired by the evil magic, his personal life did appear to be affected considerably. The impact of the magic process took about It took about 1 year to gain full momentum. He had begun to experience a queer psychophysical state. After 6 months, some change in temperament started to be felt. With the passage of time, the pernicious impact intensified quite a bit. The last 40 days of the spell were painful. He had been turning lean and pale day by day without a plausible cause. His personal memory seemed to be fading. On several occasions, he would think that he had completed a personal piece of work, even though he had not yet touched it. He often doubted his own visual process. Sometimes he imagined having seen something, whereas the facts pointed to the contrary. His routine life also appeared affected. He would think that he had seen some people without actually have seen them. It is recorded in history that the operational sphere of this irritating state was exclusively confined to his private life. It did not the least affect his functioning as an apostle. There is not even a distant reference available to the effect that during the period of the magic spell the prophet forgot a Quranic verse or misquoted the same. No change was visible in his mosque sermons, public addresses, and guidance sessions. He led all prayers with his characteristic enthusiasm and usual regularity. Had there been a slight change or even a minor lapse in the divinely ordained functioning of Prophet's office, there would have been an uproar of unending hostile criticism and bitter propaganda. As a matter of fact, the unpleasant impact of the magic was so strictly personal and selective that the general mass of the people were totally unaware what was happening to the person of the prophet. Nevertheless, the magic spell had become a source of virtual annoyance and immense inconvenience to him, his family, and close friends. In fact, the pangs of the spell had intensified during the last 3 days. How the magic was nullified. Now, this is the main point. How the magic was nullified. Do you want to know how it was nullified? Okay. How the magic was nullified. Once when Prophet's anguish under the magic spell was severe, he prayed to God repeatedly for a speedy recovery. As he lay half asleep and drowsy in that state, 2 angels appeared before him in human garb. One stood towards the head side of the cot, and cot means bed. One stood towards the head side of the cot and the other towards the feet side. In the form of a mutual dialogue, they apprised the prophet of the details of the mechanism and mystery of Labid's magical device. The prophet then hastened to depute a team of 5 Muslims to the Zarwan well. The group comprised of Ali, Ammar, Zubair, Jubair, and Qais. After a short while, he also arrived at the spot in the company of some friends. Soon the process of undoing the black magic went into full operation. It was found that the water of the well had turned red like the leaves of henna tree. The entire water was drained out of the well. The palm cover containing Prophet's hair and comb was retrieved from underneath the rock. They also traced out the cord with 11 knots and the needle-studded wax effigy. Recitation of anti-magic panache. At this stage, Angel Jibrail appeared on the scene and advised the Prophet to recite the last two surahs of the Holy Quran. Al-Falaq means dawn and Naas means mankind. It may be noted that the first surah is composed of 5 verses and the second of 6. The verses in both the surahs, thus total 11. Okay, Surah Falaq has 5 verses and Surah Naas has 6 verses. Now 5 plus 6 equals to? 11. So how many knots were in the cord? 11. So Allah Ta'ala through Jibrail alayhi salam advised the Prophet to recite 11 ayats in total. The verses in both the surahs, thus total 11. It may be remembered that the number of the knots on the magic cord was also 11. Both the surahs taken together are known as Mawzutain. The 2 surahs seeking divine refuge. Full English texts of the Mawzutain are given below. The English translation is as Al-Falaq means dawn. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of the dawn, from the evil of that which He created, and from the evil of the darkness when it is intense, and from the evil of the sorceresses who blow on knots, and from the evil of the envier when he envies. Okay? Now what is Surah Falaq? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of the dawn. Min sharri ma khalaq. From the evil of that which He created. وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. And from the evil of the darkness when it is intense. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاسَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. And from the evil of the sorceresses who blow on knots. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ. And from the evil of the envier when he envies. The point warrants special notice that verse number 4 above literally means and from the evil of blowers upon knots. What was the verse number 4? وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاسَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Uqad means knots. This is an obvious reference to the common form of witchcraft rampant in pre-Islamic Arabia, wherein the magicians, mostly women, used to tie knots in a cord and blow upon them with magical sayings. Now, the second surah is Surah Naas, means the mankind. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Naas. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind. Malikin Naas, the kind of mankind. Ilahin Naas, the God of mankind. وَمِن شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. from the evil of sneaking the whisperer. Allazi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, who whispers in the hearts of mankind. Minal jinnati wan nas, from the jinns and the mankind. Now, what happened next? Now, what happened to Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he recited 2 surahs? What happened? The Prophet feels unshackled. As the Prophet went on reciting one verse after the other, knots after knots of the magic cord began to be unfolded and needles after needles of the wax effigy extracted out. At the completion of the entire recital of 11 verses of the Mawzatan, all the 11 knots of the magic cord had been undone, and all the needles of the wax effigy extracted. With the unfastening of each knot of the cord and the extraction of each needle of the effigy, the Prophet went on feeling better and better. When the process reached its end, the Prophet came out of the magical spell completely. He reported that he felt as if a chained person had been unshackled. The painful spell had lasted about 1 year. After his emancipation from the magical spell, the Prophet summoned Labid and asked for his explanation. He confessed his misdeed. The Prophet, however, pardoned him, saying that it was an episode taking place in the orbit of his personal life and that he did not deem it advisable to take any disciplinary action. He even prohibited publicity of the magical episode so that none of his followers be incited to pick up arms in revenge. As a matter of fact, some of his infuriated companions had intended to murder the wicked magician, but the Prophet pacified them by saying, God has granted me convalescence. I don't intend in kindling strife among people for my own self. Magic and its impact on prophets. The all too intriguing magic issue has been a subject of considerable controversy among Muslims and non-Muslim scholars. Islam acknowledges the existence and operation of magic and witchcraft as an evil reality, okay? However, its practice is strictly forbidden, as is the practice of all other evil media meant to harm human mind and body. The Holy Quran holds magic as disbelief, kufr, obviously because it is an evil system seeking the support of shaitans, spirits and stars for the purpose of damaging mankind. It is reported in Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Huraira that the 7 deadly sins identified by the Prophet include magic at serial order 2 in his list. Several other traditions support and supplement this viewpoint. The basic issue here is, can prophets be influenced by magical processes? One school of thought gives the answer in a categorical no. In the history of Islam, the Mutazilites and the Modernists have rejected the entire magic episode as a fabrication and a concoction. The grounds of denial are that the world of magic and witchcraft are not amenable to human logic and perception, and that prophets could never be bewitched. The other school of thought, however, takes the stand that even a prophet, after all, is a human being. In if life's exigencies, bodily wounds, poisonous stuffs, wild animals, and emotional traumas can affect his being, then his psychological makeup could as well be temporarily influenced by other powerful extraneous forces like slanderous offenses, magic, exercises, and the like. Previous president of Prophet Musa PBUH is there to support the thesis. It is a historical fact that he was in fact impressed somewhat by the enchanting performance of Pharaoh's royal magicians. Furthermore, magic's adverse impact on human mind has also been aptly alluded to in the Surah Al-Baqarah. A factual historical episode. In order to construe a correct picture of the issue in its precise perspective, the actual facts warrant a clear focus. Labith's magic had a temporary effect on Prophet's personal life stream. Needless to re-emphasize that his life and office as a divine messenger continued to remain intact. He continued to perform all those functions smoothly without the least interruption or interference by the magic episode. The Muslim historians happen to be the founders of objective narration. They have faithfully reported interesting details of an historical event exactly as it happened in time and space. They could as well have opted to delete or distort this otherwise unpleasant episode from all Sirat narrations. This rather unusual episode too has found factual mention in all authentic Sirat literature. The narration therefore warrants credence in the form in which it has been transmitted to posterity. There may be some people who are still unable to appreciate the metaphysical mysteries of this apparently incredible incident. Such persons could reconcile to the blunt reality that human life continues to be replete with infinite events and episodes which are not yet normally amenable to ordinary logic or reason. Many a facet of human life on this wonderful planet have been, are even now, and shall continue to be shrouded in a mist of mystery. Whatever the case, one thing stands out crystal clear: the inhumane anti-Islamic forces of the day had spared no stone unturned to pervert, pollute, and perish the mind and body of the great prophet in a desperate bid to flop his life-giving mission. Okay, now that was today's lesson, today's story about magic. What's the status of magic in Islam? And it is not, it is strictly forbidden in Islam. And why? We have read in a story, and how to nullify the magic? By reading the verses of Surah Falaq and Surah Naas. Okay? Okay, now that was all for today. Allah Hafiz.